Something is happening in the auto industry. Sales are plummeting, dealerships are shutting down, and once iconic brands are now struggling to even stay in business. If you own or plan to buy one of these cars, you could be stuck with a vehicle that has no future. The crazy part, some of these brands were considered untouchable just a few years ago, like Fiat or Alfa Romeo, the brands with cars that turn heads everywhere. But the problem is, they actually don't sell.
They have a lot of debt. They have dwindling profits and cash.
Nissan is in panic mode, looking for somebody to save them.
See, it's not just bad luck. It's a perfect storm of declining consumer trust, outdated models, and financial disasters. And these are just the tip of the iceberg. The next 5, they are in serious trouble. Some of the brands on this list have seen a 99% drop in profits. And another, it's been quietly backing out of the market right under our noses. No headlines, no big announcements, just slowly disappearing while no one is watching. But now let's start with a brand that was once a household name, but is now barely clinging to relevance. The Mini, remember when Mini actually meant Mini? That feels like a distant memory now. And the further it drifts away from its roots, the closer it gets to disappearing altogether. Mini was once an icon of fun, quirky, and compact cars that stood out in a world filled with oversized sedans and sport utility vehicles. It had charm, personality, and a loyal fan base that loved its unique blend of performance and practicality. But today, Mini is struggling to stay relevant. The very thing that made it special is now fading, and buyers are taking notice. Over the last few years, Mini has grown in size, weight, and price too. What was once a small, affordable car designed for urban driving has now become something entirely different. Larger models like the Countryman and Clubman have blurred the brand's identity, moving Mini into a territory where it never truly belonged. Instead of catering to drivers looking for a nimble, compact car, Mini has tried to push into the premium segment, where it faces stiff competition from brands that have been dominating that space for decades. The result? A massive decline in sales. In the United States alone, Mini's sales have plummeted by nearly 40% in just 5 years. That is not a small dip. That is a warning sign. The brand is losing its core audience, and attempts to bring in new buyers have not worked. Mini's identity crisis has turned away longtime fans without successfully attracting luxury buyers willing to pay more. Meanwhile, competitors have stepped in to fill the void Mini once occupied. Mazda has taken over the affordable performance niche with models like the Miata, a car that delivers the same fun, engaging driving experience Mini once promised. Volkswagen continues to dominate the hatchback space with the GTI, offering superior performance and a more refined driving experience. Even Hyundai has entered the scene with its N-line models, proving that sporty, compact cars still have a place in today's market. Mini, however, is caught in an awkward position. It is no longer the best choice for small car lovers, nor is it strong enough to compete in the luxury market. And then there is the issue with dealerships. Inventory is piling up as demand continues to fall, forcing dealers to offer heavy discounts just to move units. A car that once had a strong enthusiast following is now struggling to get noticed. In an industry where consumer trends shift rapidly, losing momentum like this can be fatal. Some industry analysts even believe that Mini's struggles are reaching a breaking point. BMW, Mini's parent company, has already made adjustments to its global strategy, and if Mini continues to underperform, the American market may no longer be a priority. But Mini is not the only brand facing an uncertain future. Some companies are struggling so much that they have decided to take a break from the market entirely. But sometimes a break is not a pause. It is a quiet farewell. The next brand on this list might not be coming back at all. Jaguar, the silent exit. Most people don't even realize Jaguar is taking a break from selling cars in the United States. But what if that so-called break turns into something permanent? A quiet exit from the market is not unheard of, and for a brand like Jaguar, the signs are already pointing in that direction. What makes this situation even more concerning is that the automotive industry has changed drastically in just the past few years. Consumers now demand cutting-edge technology, competitive pricing, and strong resale value. 3 things Jaguar has struggled to deliver. While Jaguar's temporary exit is meant to give the company time to reposition itself, the reality is that time is rarely on the side of an automaker that pauses operations in a major market. Jaguar's struggles are not new. For years, the brand has been losing ground to German competitors like Mercedes-Benz, Bayerische Motorenwerke, and Audi. In the luxury segment, staying ahead means constantly evolving, and Jaguar simply has not kept up. While other luxury brands have been aggressively pushing forward with electric vehicle development, Jaguar's lineup has remained stagnant. The company made bold claims about becoming a fully electric brand, but those promises have not translated into tangible progress. Meanwhile, its German rivals continue to release high-performance electric models that are capturing consumer interest and solidifying their place in the future of luxury vehicles. Jaguar, on the other hand, has failed to make a significant impact in the electric space, leaving it with an aging lineup and declining brand appeal. Adding to the brand's struggles is its parent company, Tata Motors, which seems far more focused on the success of Land Rover than on reviving Jaguar. When resources are limited, companies make choices about where to invest, and Jaguar has not been at the top of the list. The luxury sport utility vehicle market is booming, and Land Rover continues to capitalize on that demand. With Land Rover generating higher sales and a stronger global presence, it is clear why Tata Motors is prioritizing one brand over the other. This shift in focus does not necessarily mean Jaguar will disappear entirely, but it does mean the brand's future is increasingly uncertain. If the parent company is not allocating significant resources toward Jaguar's revival, it raises serious questions about whether a comeback is truly in the works, or if this so-called break is simply a way to quietly phase out the brand in certain markets. Jaguar's supposed plan for revival hinges on a complete shift to electric vehicles by the year 2025. However, the timeline for that transformation remains vague, and the company has yet to showcase a clear strategy for how it will compete in a market already dominated by more advanced electric offerings. Without a groundbreaking electric model or a competitive pricing strategy, Jaguar risks fading into irrelevance before its reinvention even begins. The issue is not just about electric vehicle development. Even if Jaguar does manage to roll out an electric lineup, there is no guarantee that consumers will return. The luxury market is not forgiving, and once buyers move on to a competitor, winning them back is incredibly difficult. Tesla, Mercedes-Benz, and Audi have already built strong reputations in the electric space, leaving little room for Jaguar to make an impact without something truly revolutionary. Jaguar's future now hinges on whether it can execute a transformation that is not only fast, but also compelling enough to attract both former and new customers. The company cannot afford another misstep, and without a dramatic reinvention, its return to the United States may be more of a struggle than a success. If it fails to deliver on its promises, Jaguar might find that the market it once dominated has moved on without it. Taking a break from a major market is always a risky move, but taking a break in the midst of an industry-wide shift toward electric and digital innovation is even riskier. The longer Jaguar waits, the harder it will be to reclaim its place in the luxury segment. The competition is not slowing down, and Jaguar's absence is only making it easier for consumers to forget about the brand entirely. They said this is meant to be a strategic pause, but it is already looking more like a quiet retreat. Without a bold new strategy, Jaguar's return to the United States is far from guaranteed. But while Jaguar takes a break, our next brand is running out of time completely. Chrysler, the brand with no future. This is a brand running on fumes, barely hanging on as its lineup shrinks and its relevance fades. If there is one company that seems to be surviving purely out of inertia, it is Chrysler. At its peak, Chrysler had something for everyone. Sedans, convertibles, high-performance muscle cars, and even luxury models filled its showrooms. Fast forward to today, and the brand is a shell of what it once was. The Chrysler 300, a vehicle that once brought excitement with its bold design and powerful engine options, is now discontinued. That leaves just one model, the Chrysler Pacifica minivan. One car, one segment, and a shrinking audience that cares. The writing has been on the wall for years. Chrysler is no longer a competitive brand, nor does it have a clear direction for the future. The market has shifted, and the company has failed to adapt. The demand for minivans has been steadily declining as families opt for sport utility vehicles and crossover vehicles instead. Even in this niche, the Pacifica is overshadowed by competitors from Toyota, Honda, and Kia, all of whom offer models that are more technologically advanced, more reliable, and in many cases, more affordable. With only one remaining model and no exciting new products on the horizon, Chrysler's survival looks increasingly unlikely. Consumers are no longer looking for what this brand offers, and the company is doing nothing to change that. It is not just the customers who have stopped caring. Chrysler's own parent company, Stellantis, has placed the brand so far down its list of priorities that it may as well be an afterthought. Stellantis is making massive investments into its more profitable brands. Dodge, Jeep, and Ram continue to receive fresh model updates, aggressive marketing, and a clear vision for their future. Meanwhile, Chrysler is stagnating. There are no major redesigns, no concept vehicles to get excited about, and perhaps most concerning, no confirmation of any future models. While its competitors are pushing into electric vehicles and developing cutting-edge technology, Chrysler is left with a single minivan, trying to compete in a segment that is slowly vanishing. This is not just about sales numbers. Automakers that fail to innovate do not last. And Chrysler is the perfect example of a brand that seems frozen in time. If it had a future, there would at least be whispers of upcoming vehicles. But there is just silence. No news, no leaked designs, no hints of reinvention, just a brand that seems to be waiting for someone to make the final call to shut it down. Even Chrysler's dealerships are feeling the strain. When a brand has only one product to sell, it becomes increasingly difficult to justify keeping showrooms open. While larger dealerships can sustain themselves by also selling Jeep, Dodge, and Ram models, smaller Chrysler-only dealerships have been closing their doors. This is a slow-moving collapse, one that is playing out in real time, yet very few people are paying attention. The most likely outcome, Chrysler fades away, not in a sudden bankruptcy or dramatic shutdown, but in a quiet, gradual exit. Industry experts have speculated that Stellantis is already preparing to consolidate its resources, and Chrysler is the most obvious brand to cut. Without a strong lineup or a compelling reason for consumers to choose it over competitors, there is little incentive to keep it alive. This is not the first time Chrysler has been on the edge. The company barely survived past economic downturns and ownership changes. But back then, there was still a reason to fight for it. Chrysler still had brand recognition, popular models, and a place in the industry. That is no longer the case. The Chrysler of today is not a brand that inspires loyalty or excitement. It is not offering new technology, pushing the limits of design, or even attempting to capture market trends. It is simply existing. And in an industry as competitive as this one, that is not enough. For anyone considering buying a Chrysler, the real question becomes, how much longer will dealerships even be around? A brand without a strong lineup will struggle to attract new buyers, and when demand disappears, so do the service centers, the parts availability, and the resale value. That is when things become even worse. Owning a Chrysler might seem like a reasonable choice today, but if the brand disappears, will it still be a practical option 5 years down the line? Despite its struggles, Chrysler still has some presence in the market. The name is still recognizable, and it still has a network of dealerships, at least for now. And I am saying that because the next brand on this list is evidence of disappearing so quickly that most people have forgotten it even exists. Mitsubishi. If I asked you to name a Mitsubishi model other than the Outlander, could you? Take a second. Try to think of one. Struggling? You are not alone. Mitsubishi, once a name synonymous with reliability, affordability, and even rally-winning performance, has become a shadow of its former self. It is not just a slump, it is an outright disappearance. Market share has fallen below 1%, meaning Mitsubishi is practically invisible in the United States. A brand that once produced icons like the Lancer Evolution, the Eclipse, and the Montero now barely registers on the automotive radar. It is not a slow decline anymore. It is a nosedive. But here is where things get even worse. Mitsubishi no longer has an identity. Think about every other major automaker. Toyota is known for its reliability. Honda blends reliability with sportiness. Hyundai and Kia push aggressive technology and design. Mazda leans into premium driving dynamics. But what about Mitsubishi? It is not a performance brand. It is not a luxury brand. It is not an innovator. It is not even a value brand anymore. It is just there. This lack of a clear purpose has made Mitsubishi forgettable in the eyes of consumers. When was the last time you saw someone genuinely excited about a new Mitsubishi release? The brand has been unable to generate any real buzz, and in the modern automotive market, irrelevance is often more dangerous than outright failure. The Outlander is the only thing keeping Mitsubishi on life support in the United States, but even that is not enough. While it offers a plug-in hybrid version and an affordable price point, it is constantly overshadowed by stronger alternatives. The Toyota RAV4 is more reliable. The Honda CR-V has better resale value. The Hyundai Tucson has superior technology. In almost every category that matters to consumers, The Outlander falls short. And when your only real product is struggling to compete, you are in serious trouble. But let's say for a moment that Mitsubishi manages to fix its product lineup and make a more competitive vehicle. There is still another massive issue. Where would you even buy one? Dealerships are disappearing at an alarming rate. Across the country, Mitsubishi dealers are shutting down, unable to justify keeping their doors open when sales are this low. The few that remain are struggling to stay profitable. Some have resorted to selling used cars instead of new ones just to keep the lights on. When a brand starts losing its dealership network, it creates a domino effect. Fewer dealerships mean fewer sales, which lead to even more closures. It is a death spiral. This is not just bad for Mitsubishi, it is bad for existing Mitsubishi owners. Finding a dealership to service a Mitsubishi is becoming increasingly difficult. Some customers are forced to travel long distances just to get basic maintenance or warranty work done. And as dealer networks shrink, so does consumer confidence. Who wants to buy a car from a brand that might not be around to service it in a few years? And here is the real problem. Once a brand starts fading, customers notice. They become hesitant to buy, worried about long-term reliability and service availability. They start looking at competitors instead. And this is exactly what is happening with Mitsubishi. The numbers tell the story. Mitsubishi's United States market share has fallen to the lowest level in its history, now sitting below 1%. And it is not just a momentary dip. It has been on a consistent downward trajectory for years. Unlike struggling brands that have potential for revival, Mitsubishi does not have a turnaround plan. It is just hanging on, hoping that something changes. But things are not changing, and industry experts are taking notice. Reports suggest that Mitsubishi may pull out of the United States market entirely within the next 2 years. The simple truth is, the numbers no longer justify staying. A major automaker cannot sustain a presence in the United States when it is selling fewer cars than some niche luxury brands. And here is what most people do not realize. When a brand decides to leave a market, they do not always make a big announcement. They do not hold a press conference or send out a formal statement. Instead, they quietly scale back production, close down dealerships, and then, one day, they are just gone. It has happened before, and it is likely happening again. Suzuki followed this exact pattern when it left the United States a little over a decade ago. At first, there were rumors. Then, dealerships started shutting down. Then, new models stopped arriving. Before anyone fully processed what was happening, Suzuki had quietly exited the American market. Mitsubishi appears to be on the same path. And if that happens, here is what it means for consumers. On the one hand, there could be massive discounts on remaining Mitsubishi models as dealerships try to clear inventory. If you're looking for a cheap car and do not care about long-term resale value, you could probably score a bargain. But on the other hand, there is the risk of owning a car from a company that no longer has dealer support. Servicing could become a nightmare. Resale values could plummet. What seems like a good deal today might turn into a major headache a few years down the road. There is always a point in a company's decline where the writing is on the wall, but no one wants to say it out loud. This is that moment for Mitsubishi. If you still own one, you might want to start thinking about your long-term plan. And that brings us to the #1 automaker on this list. If you thought Mitsubishi was in trouble, just wait until you hear what is happening with this next brand. This is the biggest collapse yet. Nissan, the death of a giant, a 99% drop in profits. A failed merger that was supposed to secure its future. And a reputation so damaged that buyers are running the other way. Nissan, a brand that once dominated the roads, is spiraling toward disaster. Not long ago, Nissan was a force in the global automotive industry. At its peak, it commanded more than 8% of the market in the United States. But today, that number has been cut in half. Sales have plummeted, and the company is struggling to keep its dealerships alive. What happened to a brand that once rivaled Toyota and Honda? The answer is a perfect storm of bad decisions, leadership turmoil, and a failure to keep up with a changing industry. One of the biggest warning signs of Nissan's collapse is its financial freefall. Over the past year, the company's profits have dropped by an astonishing 99%. That is not just a decline, it is a near total wipeout. For a company that once prided itself on affordability and reliability, this kind of collapse is nearly unheard of. Nissan's financial reports paint a bleak picture, and investors are taking notice. A company losing this much money cannot survive for long without drastic changes. If the financial losses were not enough, Nissan's leadership has been in chaos. The company attempted to merge with Honda, a move that could have stabilized its future. Instead, the talks collapsed, exposing deep fractures within Nissan's business model. Failed mergers are not just business setbacks, they are signals of desperation. Nissan needed a lifeline, and when Honda walked away, it was left stranded. But the damage goes beyond the boardroom. Nissan's reputation with consumers has taken a massive hit, and much of that can be traced back to its ongoing reliability issues. For years, Nissan was known for building dependable, long-lasting cars, but that reputation is now in ruins. Reports of widespread transmission failures, particularly with Nissan's continuously variable transmissions, have led to costly recalls and lawsuits. Angry customers have flooded review sites with complaints, and word of mouth has only made things worse. In a market where Toyota and Honda continue to dominate by selling rock-solid reliability, Nissan has become a cautionary tale of what happens when quality takes a backseat to cost-cutting. Nissan's downfall is not just about bad management or mechanical failures. It is also about failing to evolve. The automotive industry has entered a new era, one that is being led by electric vehicles. Nissan had the advantage of being an early player in this space. The Nissan Leaf was the first mass-market electric car, and for a while, it seemed like Nissan would be a leader in the transition to clean energy. But instead of capitalizing on that success, the company stagnated. Tesla, Hyundai, and even legacy automakers like Ford pushed ahead, launching electric vehicles that were more advanced, more stylish, and more desirable. Nissan was left behind, unable to compete in the very market it helped create. Now Nissan is doing what many struggling brands do when they are on the ropes, offering massive discounts. Deep price cuts might seem like a great deal for buyers, but for a company, they are a huge red flag. When an automaker is forced to slash prices just to move inventory, it means demand is dropping and profits are shrinking. Discounts may keep the lights on for a while, but in the long run, they only speed up the decline. Industry experts warn that Nissan could be heading toward major restructuring. Some suggest that the company may have to reduce its dealership footprint, shutting down locations that are no longer profitable. Others believe Nissan could pull back from the United States market altogether, focusing on regions where it still has a stronger presence. If Nissan cannot turn things around, its future in the United States could be in jeopardy. But Nissan is not alone. The entire automotive industry is undergoing a massive shift, and other brands are feeling the pressure, and I am not talking about the ones we only talked on this video. So tell us other brands you have noticed, and let's talk in the comments. Thanks.